Okay then. So, I guess it's about time I made my own sort of totally low effort content of Stoichia Clan and the whole overdressed stuff that's going down. So overall, I'd say my opinions of it are pretty good. I like the idea that we're getting a reset. I like the look of the new triggers. Well, I'm not so sure about the big ones, but I like the shield values on some of the units we've seen so far. Personally, big fan of reversing to a time when we have less powerful trigger shield values, which also might indicate that aside from these mega triggers that we're getting, we might be also receiving some cards that maybe, maybe a bit more toned down than the cards we've seen in standard so far, because we have definitely seen a lot of stuff in standard that has gone way too far, way too fast, and really needed toning back a lot. Which, I mean, been seeing now with the new standard collection stuff that we're getting a lot less power creep going on. We've got, all the newer units aren't really anything to shout about or write home about with what we've currently seen. So you never know, we might still get some balance in standard, especially if they make it their own format. They may even bring out a special ban list allowing them to actually balance Gavriel format. Who knows? So, but in general, I'd say the future is looking pretty bright as things go for everything we're seeing. I'd say I'm liking the look of the new grade 3s. The new ride deck is really good. Help you not get stuck. I think I know several people who are suggesting the ride deck even before we received it. They'd already pointed out the idea of having some sort of extra deck that could be ridden from every turn to help with the issue of having, grade stuck problems that a lot of people often got. But I mean, I'm also a bit worried because it could end up with some very interesting decks. I know we're not getting, at least not for the time being, we're not getting a premium version of ride decks yet. So they're only going to be an overdress sort of thing, and we'll get more information, I'm sure, on Tuesday with the stream. But overall, I'm quite hopeful about where this one leads. I very much do like the idea of a ride deck because overall it's just consistency boosting. Whether or not it'll be good, we don't know. Like, I can imagine right now if we had a ride deck in standard, you could definitely get some interesting things like DP decks that don't even need to run grade 2s, for example, or even grade 1s. If you run one grade 1 in your stride deck, then you're already able to stride up. You're already able to ride up in your ride deck. Sorry, my apologies. So it could become very possible that we end up getting decks that are built in ways that we haven't seen before, just because of the reliability of having that ride. Whether it's a deck that's full of grade 1s and grade 2s because you have the guaranteed only one of grade 3, which you only need one of because you're only planning to ride into it once. Whether we'll see decks are a bit different from that, we don't know yet. Overall, I'd hope that we at least have some reason to keep a balance of grades in our deck, whether it's a reason to re-ride and the main idea of the ride deck. They may have another focus on rides, but in a different way than standard did. So we're still yet to see that. Oops, that is. I think that's a bit small. Let's just correct that size. So we could end up with decks that are several. I'm still just, this idea is stuck in my head of Morikawa style Grand Blue deck that with the focus being all grade 3s, and having just the ride deck there to utilize the early to help you navigate the early game. And then once you get to grade 3, you start really hitting hard, or whether you've got a defensive skill similar to certain Dimension Police units, such as Styliner, that just allows you to run with it as it goes. We shall see indeed as time goes on. I'm sort of hopeful for some of the stuff we're going to get. So that'll be interesting. They will need to provide a reason though for not having that scenario where you're just all right, one grade 3. So hopefully that means they'll put a bit more time and effort into reasons to ride and things like that. So we'll probably have quite a few more useful rides, so that there's still a reason to ride other units for different scenarios, which I mean is promising. I'm hoping that we're going to get sort of a limit break level of power to begin with. Personally, I'd be a big fan of that, and even some limit break mechanic styles like the damage limiters on abilities would be actually quite good, and I think healthy for the state of the game, because it allowed them to make the more powerful abilities locked behind that barrier of having to have taken a certain amount of damage and gotten to a certain point of the game, which would allow more counterplay. Which, big fan of that. Whether we'll get that or not, we don't know yet. I am hopeful, but as far as I'm aware, it does look like we're going down in power from standard, which is a very thankful moment for me, because I think standard had gotten to a point where we just had too much power in almost everything. Like, unless you were making a certain number of gift markers a turn, you just weren't doing anything. So I think overall it's a good change in terms of how things should be set out. Outside of that, I guess we should talk about the whole clan combination stuff, because I know a lot of people will be wondering what I'm doing with that. Well, not a lot of people, but a few people, at least a few that I know, will be wondering what I'm thinking about the whole clan combination into the nations, because of course I generally only play Aquaforce where possible, so it is a big change for me in that regard, where I may have to start looking at playing multi-clans for a while, with the whole Stoichia nation, rather than just I will be sticking to the one that has Aquaforce in it, and I'm assuming that the whole nation setup that we've gotten is just a way to effectively allow everyone to have a deck straight out the gate that everyone can play, because Standard's biggest issue, as I think I've mentioned before, was the lack of decks for a very long time. For certain clans didn't see anything for a very long time, and it was very frustrating, especially if you're a Link Joker player. I seem to remember Link Joker and Bermuda were the last to come out. That was incredibly frustrating as situations go, and I think they're looking to combat that this time, by making sure that everyone has a clan to play in this coming set, which is good. I like it. There's a lot of good things to see there. It means that no one's going to be left out. No one's going to be waiting on their things. I mean, we'll be waiting on our clans, but I'm pretty sure once it gets going, Overdress is going to go down the route of releasing enough stuff that clans won't be such a large issue in the whole, and I think clans will eventually separate out again from their nations. It's just a way of them starting off the whole setup, because as I said, they need to make sure that everyone can play the game and no one's waiting on their clan or deck to come along. And though there will be, and I don't think they're going to give up on clans and just make them a side thing like races are, where like only Nightmare Dolls use the Workeroid underscore and very few other things use it. I reckon we will be seeing more in terms of that kind of thing. We might have some units at the start that say if you have a clan based from this, then gains said skill. That might be there at first, but I think overall we'll be seeing that branch out very quickly after the first few sets. Once everyone's got a good decent amount of cards, then we'll have the occasional card that can be used by every clan. That might be a useful staple, which will be nice. So just say Great Nature gets a good staple card that maybe just removes a problem that's common in the meta at the time. Now accessible to all of us, rather than crying that we don't have an anti-lock card, for example, or I mean, especially with this nation thing, they could definitely bring in lockback as well properly into the game. I know they just did that in standard with Chaos Breaker, but with the whole setup of the new setup for nations, means that they can effectively bring back that and include, just one anti-lock card or one set of anti-cards that are then usable by everyone in that nation, so they don't have to print one separately for every single clan, and then it goes on and on. So I'm hoping Brantgate does bring them some lock back as a mechanic, because I really enjoy the. No, that sounds masochistic, doesn't it? I enjoy the experience of playing against and around lock. So personally, I would like to see that mechanic back in the game. Whether or not we will, it's still yet to be seen, because of course it has to be carefully balanced when they do implement that style of skill. Along with that, we're getting the structure decks very cheap. That's good. Definitely a big fan of cheap structure decks, because it's really good for starting the game, starting a new format, getting everyone involved, gets everyone excited as well, because they know that they're not going to have to fork out an arm and a leg to afford several copies of a structure deck. And also it allows people to buy effectively multiple structure decks if they're looking to, just to get a taste of every single clan at the time. And that'll be good, I think, because just in general it allows everyone to cheaply afford and have a look and feel for every single clan that's coming out. And I think that's a very good idea overall, just to reduce the cost. I know they said they were printing it at a loss, and while I do question whether it's a loss or not, I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth. I'm going to thank them for printing them at a cheap cost for us, because I think that'll be crucial, especially when everyone's just going to be like, well, I just spent all this money on standard cards or whatever cards. That people aren't going to be wanting to spend an awful lot at this point in time on a new set just after having spent money on another one. And it also helps encourage people to spend stuff on the new clan selection cards, because they know that the new stuff won't cost as much, at least off the bat. Whether or not that'll work, we will wait and see. I'm hoping it does, because I'm very excited for this. I do want this. I'm also happy that with the split up of formats, it looks like Premium is once again reviving. I know I've heard lots of tales in Japan that the interest in Japan for the Premium is picking up again, and they've announced the Premium Collection too, which I'm a big fan of. I think that's a good sign, especially for Premium players in general, because it means that our format isn't going to fall out. It's the eternal format after all. I'm still unsure as how they're going to manage D cards in Premium, as we've got the different nations. I think they have released a bit of information on it, but as far as I'm aware, we're not getting the ride decks at all. Overall, I'd say we're not getting the ride decks, which is okay. We don't have to have them anyhow. It's just, it'd be interesting to see the strategies that would evolve from ride decks in Premium. So you definitely get things like the Dimension Police running one grade 1 and one grade 2, one grade 0, and the rest is all triggers and grade 3s, which would be hilarious, because it would be a guarantee. But then again, we don't know. We might have one of my thoughts on the whole situation with that is that we might have stuff like Brantgate, for example. Brantgate might say something along the lines of your opponent. We might get cards that are control cards in those sort of clans that might say your opponent cannot use their ride deck, which would be interesting, especially if people are playing one-ofs to make if people are playing one-ofs at a time, trying to get the ride up. I am quite interested to see how that goes, because it allows for a different type of control to be implemented, where if people are running those Tsukiyomi lines where they're relying on one card every ride, but now they've got it guaranteed, you could definitely have a mechanic where you seal off the ability to use that ride deck, and effectively you can definitely harm some deck strategies, if there are any at the top on release, that are affected by that kind of thing quite heavily. We don't know for sure yet, but I'm hopeful in that regard that we'll get a lot of counterplay along those lines, because you know, it means new opportunities for counterplay, new opportunities for decision making within the game, which I've often said before. Decision making is key to making a game interesting. If you just feel like you're going through the motions, you're never going to feel like you're actually playing the game, which is always going to be a problem in terms of keeping interest in the game, because often Standard felt very much like, oh, just follow the motions, eventually you'll get to the finish, but depending on whether you hit triggers or not, etc., whether you draw your combo pieces or not, you'll just you'll either get there or you won't. Either you'll win or you'll lose, whether it's be luck. Luck felt like it took a bigger factor due to the large trigger size, so I'm hoping we're going to go down again. But the other thing to mention, if we do go down again in trigger values, stat premium and card power, I don't think we're going to be seeing many cards from this collection, at least not at first, being used in premium, which I think is kind of an interesting concept, because overall, from what we've seen so far, it's quite possible that the premium cards aren't going to be these new I guess we'll call it D series for now. Oh dear, what does the D stand for? But for now, I think we'll be seeing a lot more of use of that kind of thing. I don't know if how it'll affect us. Oh, what's that? I think I've lost my train of thought for a second there. So overall, pretty happy with what we've seen so far. Definitely, the one thing I would like to talk about as well is triggers. The whole super trigger thing, the uber triggers, I'm a bit skeptical about those, because having a one-off uber trigger that could effectively swing an entire game if you've played the game well, like all game, and then your opponent's like, oh, ghetto damage trigger, you're going for your last turn, you've thrown on all your units, your opponent just happens to hit the one-off defensive 1 billion or 1 trillion, I don't know quite how big it was, trigger, and then you basically have turnover unless you have some sort of card that does damage if it doesn't hit, which I doubt we will have anything like that, or whether it will be even usable. I'm also a bit concerned about the triggers in the regard of how they're going to be implemented, because they're only one-offs, and the trigger symbol is, in my opinion, rather interesting in itself, because the trigger symbol that we've seen has been I did notice that the grade 3, in place of the gift marker symbol, it does have a symbol that's very, very similar to that, the symbol on the Uber trigger. So I'm kind of worried that the new grade 3 is going to be tied to the Uber triggers. Generally, just because it would kind of suck to have them all just say something along the lines of stack your deck with the trigger, and then your next drive check is guaranteed to be the Uber trigger. And while that does provide counterplay of your opponent knowing it's there, I'm not a big fan of the whole, the whole stacking the deck with a trigger, because if every clan can do it, then you take away maybe from Oracle Think Tank, for example, whose main skill would be something along those lines. But also, we've also been told that every clan will be receiving its own unique trigger style effect, and whether at the moment everyone's receiving the massive power boosting trigger, and I think that's just going to be in every structure deck. We'll probably get one of those, and then they'll branch out with new triggers in the next few sets. Specifically, I'm seeing something like, maybe a trigger that just says stand everything. I'm hoping the return of stand triggers also happens. Whether or not it's a fool's dream, I don't know. I quite like the idea of having a third offensive trigger type, and I really hope they don't restrict triggers like that to certain clans, similar to how they restricted fronts in the standard, where only Axel clans could use fronts, because that was kind of it just basically meant that you knew there was only ever one threat type coming from force and protect decks of critical triggers in terms of offensive triggers. And that did very much remove any of the potential deck building options. Standard was very, very basic in that regard. And I'm really hoping we get something a little bigger when it comes to that sort of thing. I'm also hoping to get a bit more varied because one of the other things that Standard took away was triggers with effects, and I feel like that was wholly a bad move because it basically made triggers have no identity in the game. And I think the identity is very important in a game like Vanguard. It's partly why I believe they will bring clans back fully, like as their own thing eventually, once they've got going, because clans and identity is half the selling point of the game. That you can pick your clan, enjoy it, feel like you're the best player with it, even if you aren't. Haha, me. Yeah, I still make tons of mistakes every now and then. But yeah, it's the kind of thing where um, it's a big selling point of the game. It's a big interest. The fact that you can be like, well, I really like this clan, I can build this clan, and it has an identity and a playstyle. Whether the playstyle is similar to another doesn't matter too much because they're always varied enough that generally there's enough difference between the two that yeah, generally it feels different enough that you can really feel the identity of a clan. While Nova Grapple and Aquaforce similar, they multi-attack. Aquaforce often had build-ups in power based on how many attacks you had. At least in G, that was a thing. Or they have their own. They usually stand themselves most of the time, whereas in a lot of cases, Nova Grappler stands other things. And while it does, and just goes for many attacks. Hence why I'm still quite a fan of Nova Grappler as well. They're probably my second favourite clan next to Neo Nectar. Which is a bit of a weird choice really when I think about it, but I'm kind of excited for the Neo Nectar to actually get back on route, and I'm hoping in a lot of ways that tokens don't come back into the game because personally, while it was an interesting new step, I don't think it had the desired result. They used up all the things that I think were potential for tokens when they first they used up the type of skills for tokens very quickly at the beginning of Standard. Like almost every token style effect was already done in the first Neo Nectar set. I know they did change that up a bit with Nubatama, but like ever since then, pretty much the most powerful anything got was free cost, make a token, or make more than one token, and that's basically all it became. And that felt kind of jerky. So I'd hope we don't really look at tokens anymore in that regard. What else do I have? So that's clan combining. So yeah, I'm okay with using it. I'll use the Stoichia for now and pray that Aquaforce separates itself out. Overall, it's what it is. I guess, and I'll have to pray that they don't forget what clan identity is and play this like Magic the Gathering with different colors, with just nations being the main sort of thing. I really hope they don't. I don't think they will. It just seems like a bad marketing idea to me, and generally they'll make sensible marketing. And the guy who's been put in charge ran Shadowverse for a long time. I hear he brought it back from the brink of death. Some people have told me, I don't know if that's an over-exaggeration or not. I never actually played Shadowverse, though I hear it is quite fun. So maybe someone down in the comments let me know how it goes. But overall, I'd say I've got a lot of high hopes for just in general the whole premium, not premium, the whole selection we're getting out of the new stuff. It's a new start, and while it feels bad to have to let go of everything we had before, the standard format does still exist, and premium very much still exists. The main worry I had when I thought of a reboot, I didn't think it was going to happen, but the main worry I had when we first heard about the reboots and stuff was that we would we'd effectively lose a format. Like they'd say, well, premium is just not supported in any way anymore, and we're only focusing on standard. And luckily they didn't do that, and they just said, 3 formats, why not? And I think from that we'll probably evolve to a point where premium is the only other format, as I think the interest in standard greatly dies off when people realize it's never going to get any better, I guess. Whereas premium will still, we have got the standard collections, but to be honest, if you had to choose between, the adaptation and adaptability of premium format and premium V format, I'm pretty sure most people will choose you know, the one that you know, has at least some chance of adapting to the newer stuff, because you know, it means it gives the cards you buy as well more value as well, because you know it can still be used in two formats rather than just one. If you buy cards from the D format, you know, overdress format, you'll know it can at least still be used when compared to cards that can't anymore. So we'll see. Anything else to say? It's the grade 3 symbol. I'm hoping that we get some sort of equip system. I've still got that hope. I know it's a slim one at this point. You know, it's almost confirmed at this point that it has something to do with the triggers, just because of how similar the symbols look. Though I don't quote me on that if it does turn out to have something completely different. But I am still slightly hopeful that you know, I'll have some sort of equipment system or stride deck. I've heard them talking about the potential of bringing back strides. Whether or not they actually will or not is, you know, still in debate. I've heard they've been discussing it. I always thought the idea that what if they brought back strides, but due to the Cray falling into, you know, despair or whatever, or disarray, I guess is probably the better term for it, during Cray falling during the last 3,000 years or so. What if instead of striding from the future, you stride from the past where units were stronger? So you could maybe have even the reappearance of older units. Though I don't know if people would want that. I would think it was funny. Alongside that, I guess I should also mention that there's the possibility that we see stride units as grade 3s or grade 2s or even grade 1s. You know, you could have like a young Lambros in training. You know, Officer Cadet Lambros. He hasn't yet reached that point in time where he's a stride, but I always thought that idea would be funny. You know, have a grumpy looking stride to access. You know, whether or not we do, that's another thing entirely. Hopeful that we may be. You never know. You never know. So we'll see where it goes from here. Anime wise, I'll only talk about that briefly, I think, because you know, not everyone's a big fan of the whole anime sometimes, and anime, you know, not everyone's a big fan of watching it. Like, some people like to play their card games about. But I'd say anime wise, I'm liking the look of the new Stoichia character. As you can see, she's you know, here. I'm hoping that she's looking a bit like I'm just a bit worried that she looks similar to what's her name from the G series, Tokaha. She gives me that Tokaha vibe, and that's partly because her hairline for me is similar and her face shape is similar. But overall, I think I'm hoping that she's going to be at least an interesting character. I hear something along the lines of, I've seen some pictures of her not dressed in the sort of almost delivery boy sort of outfit, the plain jeans with general just blues, which is quite nice color wise. But I'm hoping that she's you know, at least quite well developed. I hope all of them get good development. I'm quite interested to see how they do this. I do hope we have like bits where they play specific clans. I'm a bit worried that I was a bit worried originally that, you know, I'm still a bit worried that as cool as Sylvan Beast King Magnolia is, I would very much prefer if maybe they didn't have as much attachment to the unit. Then again, I think that is also another selling point for the game, so they probably will have, you know, each of these units will probably have a special attachment, and then anything else is on the side. Maybe they'll play it for like a day, or, you know, they'll have like an episode of the week thing where they're like, oh, I'll play an Aquaforce based deck for this week. You know, I'm testing out this new deck for my nation. Or maybe we'll get side characters that specialize in nations, similar to, you know, similar to the Tachikaze player. Sorry, his name has escaped my mind. In the original, you know, he just was there and he played Tachikaze. Eventually, it turned out, and you know, he got better. I quite liked his character development. I'm a bit sad they didn't bring him back in V. At least not much. I think he was there, but not really at all anywhere near close to how he used to be. which is a shame and a waste of character potential. I think V was very rushed, and I hope they take this one a bit more slowly. I'm not sure. It looks like this one could even be a bit more mature than the other ones. I think they are looking more at a mature audience with some of the character designs. Maybe not. Um, we'll see. But overall, I'm quite excited for everything that's going down. So clan combining. Hope it doesn't go long. And yeah, the units look cool. The one nice thing to say about Sylvan Horned Beast King Magnolia, as I have to read out his name every single time, 100% of the time. Not really, but imagine if I did. That would be a great sponsorship. Bushy Road sponsor me. But overall, I'd say clan designs, they look really good. Not really a fan of the the whole Brantgate stuff at the moment, but I'd say Magnolia as a whole, like, it's got the aspect of Great Nature that I do like, which is the whole mythical beast sort of majestic being thing. It's very similar to the reason I like Aquaforce for the whole style concept of the units, and so this could go a long way. But hopefully, I'm praying that we get a good overdress. Yeah. So yeah, thank you for. I'm thinking that overall, Sylvanhorn, Beast King Magnolia looking pretty fine. A lot of the other units look good. I know from the small amount of footage we've seen, it seems like overall Aquaforce, for example, is not being shown, at least specifically as units go, within within the whole thing. And I'm hopeful that we will get something on them soon. So hopefully. But anyhow, I guess I'll get more discussion on this on Tuesday. So I'll see you then. Adios.